Yeah, Bev, this evening the Chinese Defence Ministry has issued a much stronger statement. I'll just read you a little bit of it. It only came out in the last hour or so. The Chinese military says that the distance between the Australian military plane and the Chinese warships was very close. The Chinese military accuses the Australian defence plane of dropping sonobuoys, which are anti-submarine monitoring devices, which the Chinese side says was a malicious provocation that can easily lead to misinterpretation and misjudgment. We demand Australia to stop similar provocative and dangerous actions, to stop groundless accusations against China. So both sides now, Bev, are really digging in on the details about what happened, because I understand that in tomorrow's Australian newspaper, the Australian Defence Force will confirm what the Chinese military is saying, that the plane flew at its closest point about 4 kilometres from the Chinese ships. The Australian Defence Force says this is a standard distance that you would normally be flying at when you're trying to observe surface vessels, whereas the Chinese military is saying it was too close and it was provocative.
Yeah. It isn't the first time, though, Bill, that China's Navy has been accused of using lasers against other militaries.
Yeah, there was a similar case a couple of years ago in Djibouti, the African country where both China, the US and several other nations have military bases, where the Americans accused the Chinese of using a military laser device and shining it at an American plane as it was landing at one of the bases in Djibouti. So there is a bit of historical form on this. And the most interesting thing, Bev, about the accusations and the response this time around is that there's no effort at all from Beijing to deny that the warship did point a military laser at the Australian plane. Rather, it's just the Chinese side is saying that they were justified in doing it, and also, too, that in some state media reports, there's a claim that it's a routine practice for warships at sea to use military lasers to lock on a target for the simple, harmless purpose of trying to measure the distance to that target. This is at least what some Chinese military analysts are saying.
Yeah, interesting. It also happened, Bill, just to Australia's north coast. So are we likely to see more Chinese vessels so close in our region and in our exclusive economic zones?
Yeah, Bev, I think this is a taste of what's to come. These 2 Chinese warships were originally detected in Indonesian waters. They were, or near Indonesia, heading eastwards across the northern stretches of water to the Northern Territory and then Queensland's coast through the Torres Strait and then out into the Coral Sea. And it appears that these Chinese ships were basically exercising freedom of navigation. They were in international water. There's no reason they can't be sailing there. And in some of the commentary in China about this incident, there are many references to previous Australian missions in the South China Sea, which of course China claims as its territory, basically saying, well, you guys, the Americans, have been sailing through what we regard as our territory for a long time, so you shouldn't be kicking up a fuss if you see our warships in your region. There's no dispute, Bev, that the Chinese ships didn't have a right to be there. It's international waters. The dispute really is about the confrontation that happened.
Yeah. Bill, it's been interesting, of course, the world is sort of united in its condemnation of Russia and its build-up of troops on the Ukrainian border, but Beijing has publicly supported Putin and his security interests. Why is China getting behind Russia?
Yeah, the Chinese leader has said that Russia's security concerns regarding NATO and the expansion of NATO, that these are legitimate concerns for the Russian government to have. Some analysts, though, Bev, believe that when Vladimir Putin recently went to Beijing and met Xi Jinping, that the joint statement coming out of that from the Chinese side wasn't particularly supportive. Rather, it was sort of offering some support for the concerns that President Putin has, rather than voicing support for any sort of military action if that's what the Russian government wanted to do in Ukraine. So I'd be cautious to say that China is supportive of the Russian leader's military aggression by surrounding Ukraine with troops. However, these two countries now really have a very firm alliance. The Russians need the Chinese far more than China needs Russia. Economically, China is much bigger. And I think you're unlikely to see, at least publicly, any Chinese pushback against Russia's moves in Eastern Europe, simply because the relationship is so close and so mutually beneficial.
Yeah, and interestingly, they called for peace as they wrapped up the Beijing Games, Bill. Really good to chat. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Bev.